We'll call the Devils Lake City Commission meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well.
Yeah, I won't trip on.
Okay.
These are one of the fun things to do, recognizing our employees for lengths of service. So Devin Gaffman, Brandon Exner, and Eugene Lamont, please come forward if you would.
Good,
20 years, wow, I know. Okay, I'd like to congratulate these three individuals for their commitment to the city of Devils Lake and their service. Devin, for 5 years of service, appreciate your service and all you do for us, and I'm looking forward to 5 more years coming up. And then Brandon, I had the pleasure of working with you for most of these 20 years, so congratulations. Yes, congratulations. And then Eugene, 25 years of service. Wow, keep up the good work, appreciate it. Big round of applause for you.
We get so Devin works in the engineering department, Brandon in the fire department, and Eugene Lamont works in our sanitation.
Yeah.
We haul our garbage to Grand Forks, and Gene's going to auction the truck every day and hauls it there. And so one of those things that you don't often see, but he does a lot of good
This
work.
weather is not the kind of pleasure to guys.
So Eric, I'll give it.
Well, thanks again for that. All right.
You guys.
No, okay.
Kind of got to be here, man.
Good job, guys.
Wow.
Great job.
Thank you.
His son is.
Oh, yeah. There's the mail. We cancel our subscription. That's the last 3 ones.
Okay. Next on the agenda, public hearing for a zoning change. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to talk about the zoning change? If not, I will close the public hearing and we will go into the planning commission recommendation. And this first item is get here to rezone. I'll let Mike, if you would.
If you go to the last page of that recommendation, you'll see the parcels that are being discussed as part of the recommendation. Those parcels are going to be changed from commercial highway to light industrial for some of the manufacturing process for Nordic fiberglass. Recommendation from the planning commission is to approve the change in the zoning. And then there'll be another parcel coming forward for the commission to review. The planning commission will be meeting on that to change another parcel in that area to light industrial, but it's all for the manufacturing process for Nordic fiberglass. Recommend approval of the planning commission's recommendation.
Are they going to be building on that then? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, their plan is to build on the parcel that is closest to Second Street. So the other parcel they already have, it was an oversight. The other parcel, realistically, that zoning should have been changed some time ago, and we're doing some cleanup there. So they're looking at putting up one building and then utilizing the building that used to be Bob's Truck Accessories. They're looking at utilizing that building for a palletizing, making pallets for their operation. And that'll come forward at one of the future meetings.
Okay, what's the wishes of the commission?
I'll make motion to approve the planning commission's recommendation.
Motion by Commissioner Robbins,
I'll second the motion.
second by Commissioner Pierce. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is the fuel tank. Mike, once again, if you would.
Mayor, in your former life as the police or the fire chief, you were very involved with the review of this. The current fire chief also is involved with the review of this. There's a fuel tank they're looking at relocating out in the airport area. And those fuel tanks require a conditional use permit. That's why it's reviewed by the planning commission and recommendation going forward to the city commission. There's a relocation of an existing tank, meets all the requirements. It's been signed off by the fire chief. Recommend approval.
We have a recommendation to approve. What's the wish of the commission?
Recommend to approve the conditional permit.
Motion by Commissioner Pierce,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hatch. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Just gonna throw one thing. Did we, on the agenda, did we miss the approval of the previous minutes, last meeting minutes, or is that down there further?
Just due to some other business, we didn't get to those in the interim, and so we're gonna have both of those for the next meeting.
Oh, okay,
We'll have,
okay, all right,
a larger tranche for you guys.
okay.
Okay. Good catch. Yeah. I didn't see it here either. Okay, visitors and delegations. Do we have anybody? Nothing.
Sorry, Mayor, did we do the public hearing for the?
Fuel tank? Yes, that was, oh, that should be separate, I guess. How did I handle? I missed the public hearing, opening and closing. Do we still need to do it even though we voted to approve it?
If there's nobody in the audience,
There's-
is it relevant? Or there's somebody in the audience.
Sean wishes to speak to it, okay.
Can they just rescind action on the previous agenda item?
It's-
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can just rescind
Yeah,
action
just-
and then you can just do it over again.
Okay, we'll have to redo it. All right, my apologies for that happening. I'm not familiar. I thought public hearings, once you had one, okay. We have a public hearing for a fuel tank relocation. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on behalf of that? If not, I close the hearing and we will move on to the recommendation of the planning commission to approve this recommendation.
I recommend
So
relocation.
we have a motion from Commissioner Pierce to accept the relocation,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Hatch. Any further discussion? None being, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. My apologies for that confusion. Visitors and delegations. None here, so we'll move on to commissioner portfolios. And I'll start off with Commissioner Pierce.
Chief?
Yeah, we just finished up, hopefully one of our last station tours for the year for fire prevention. And we're just getting ready for the fishing derby, so that's all we got going on right now.
Just to reiterate, the Angry Beaver is done with all of the trees for the year, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So they're good there, and they put the bill forward to be
Are they doing stumps?
paid. Stumps have been done, yeah, everything's been
Okay,
completed.
perfect.
And if any questions, sir, that's all I have.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Robbins.
Mike, anything engineering?
Nothing for engineering tonight. Commissioner, there's a couple items on the agenda that we'll discuss.
Okay, streets?
With streets, snow removal equipment is ready. They got the salt, sand, and the sanders ready to go as well. So they've been working to get that stuff put together. Other than that, they're trying to finish up some items late in the fall if conditions still allow. We still have some asphalt that has to go down. We're hoping to get that down tomorrow. We'll see how the weather holds.
47 degrees tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah, so we'll try and get that put together. But that's all I have for streets unless you have questions for me, Commissioner.
Just, how do you feel the project's going out there for the fishing pond?
Ruger Park, if you stopped out there today, you would have seen an excavator that had got to the bottom of the hole and was having trouble getting out. But as far as the overall excavation, we're encountering the material that we thought we were going to encounter. Contractor's been really good to work with. They're going to continue to work on that project. The whole idea behind that urban fishing pond, I think we've discussed, is, those ponds up in Ruger Park were originally constructed in the late 70s as part of a project with EPA to mitigate the wetlands that were drained as part of our storm sewer separation project. And there are two low-head dams located on the very southern edge of Ruger Park. And those dams are what's holding the water back within the park for these wetlands. And what we're doing, the depth on those wetlands are about 4 feet from the top of the dam to the bottom. So the typical water level in there would be about 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet. We're excavating an area of that pond about 8 feet deeper. We're trying to get about a 12-foot depth there around the area where the fishing pier is going to be located. The Game and Fish feels that if you get to that 12-foot depth, then you don't have weed issues, and it's a lot nicer fishing area. And so that's what we're doing in conjunction with the Park District, trying to work with the contractor to get that area cleaned up. Trying to get the excavation of the pond complete yet this fall, so next spring, that spring runoff will fill the pond, everything will be there. And then we'll have some on-site improvements remaining for next fall as far as parking area, some sidewalk, pedestrian access areas, and then a fishing pier. You know, those items are needed for that project. I think the Park District's working on construction of the fishing pier itself, have that fabricated offsite, moved on to site. So we're hopeful that, you know, by the middle of next summer, that area will be ready for, you know, to be fished. Met with Game and Fish on site. Randy Hiltner, he's the lake biologist. Met with him on site last week just to address any concerns that he may have related to the fish and being able to stock the fish. Anything that we have to do in particular for him to make sure that their equipment will have access for dumping the fish into the pond. The concept at this point for Game and Fish is that they're going to capture the fish from Devil's Lake and just relocate those fish from Devil's Lake into this pond. Because ultimately the water from this pond will enter Devil's Lake. They want to make sure with any issues with ANS and things like that, they want to make sure that they're keeping fish from Devil's Lake in Devil's Lake.
Is there any concerns with access to that area during the winter time is there going to be anything left out there for local populace to get access to, anything like that for that area?
Is it for the winter time?
Yeah, during the winter time.
We're not setting it up for the winter time. They don't expect the fish to.
No, I mean just for the construction of it itself. Are they going to have any problems with, you know, people getting into that area,
Oh, accidents, you mean?
access to that area that they're working in? No.
No, right now, Commissioner, what's happening with the construction is they're well off the shared use path that exists up there, the bike path. That wasn't even closed for the work that they're doing. So all of their work is near a pond. There is, you know, some inconvenience to those Frisbee golfers for one of the holes or two of the holes that are in that area. But other than that,
I was just thinking for safety out there, if there was any issues
There
or
won't-
anything that they were concerned about, anything like that.
no, it's kind of off the travel path a little bit. We do have some work, you know, some of the material coming out of that site is fairly soft, soupy. And so, but that's being deposited in an area that's, again, is off the beaten path. So we'll be back in there. But as far as the safety concerned, you know, there really wasn't access to the pond in the past. We're cleaning up some cattails. That, as far as the slope adjacent to the pond and things, that isn't changing. In fact, we're going to level that off just a little bit, make it a little bit flatter, ultimately a little bit safer. Any issues that we think could be a concern, we'll put up some safety fence. Depending upon how their construction goes, I would suspect within a week, they should have it close to being ramped up.
Thank you.
I just got one other thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
No
all
problem.
right. Last meeting, we had a representative come from the bank, addressed us on the city signing what do you want to call it? Guaranteed on a loan for a local entity. And it went the way it went. I voted no, everybody voted yes, that's fine. But the part that I'd like to address is if we get something like that in the future, maybe to have a little better update, maybe a little more information on what we're doing. In my mind, I feel like we approved a $700,000 guarantee on a loan that we had maybe 5 minutes worth of conversation on, that we had basically no information other than, you know, they're looking at the times are tough during COVID. They're looking at getting contracts here and there. I just think we could have done better, and we should do better potentially in the future. And not trying to undo anything that we did, just trying to come up with a better recipe for next time. And so my thought process there is maybe we could form a committee, a couple guys, I'd be happy to serve Spencer or whoever and just come up with a little bit of a playbook for something like that comes up in the future. Just a number of things. How far do we extend ourselves on some of this stuff? How much money does Forward have, Devils Lake have on hand to maybe even cover some of these guarantees that we're looking at? I mean, right now, I think we've got more extended than we have on hand if we do the two that we have already that we're supporting. So I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I just like to have a little better plan of action if this comes up again in the future.
Were you, I was contacted and I sat down and spoke with Ford Devils Lake about this beforehand. Did you have the
No.
opportunity to?
Okay, I mean, who got a hold of you?
I actually came in and was speaking to him about something else, and that's when it was brought up to me. So yeah, like maybe if we are told to have ahead of time, like you said, have more, so everybody's has more.
And just a little bit of information. I mean, we had basically nothing, no numbers, no anything to support it, type thing. I don't know if it was because the bank felt that they were not viable or it's just something they felt that they could ask for and get. I don't know what the reasoning rationale was behind it, but it just felt uncomfortable to me. Not that we necessarily did the wrong thing. I just think we could have done better as far as signing off on it potentially.
Commissioner, the Forward Devils Lake Board did do the recommendations, so that they did do the diligence from that standpoint. But I understand where you're coming from. You know, I mean, the reality is just about everything goes through Forward Devils Lake office. We have a board that scrutinizes it after I scrutinize it, after bankers scrutinize it, and then we bring it to you. And so I like the idea that Commissioner Robbins is coming up with, is maybe have a smaller group. I try to get it individually with you, but that always doesn't happen for every type of situation. And in this case, it was pretty quick as well. So once again, I think that's not a bad idea.
Thank you for your.
And basically, ultimately, I think we'd be the ones that get scrutinized if it went the wrong way. The Forward Devils Lake recommended it, which is fine, but I think if we approve it, we're the final stamp, so we're the ones that would probably get the most heat. Certainly aren't going to get any credit for it, I don't think, but we'll get more heat than anything if things don't go the right way.
In the worst case scenario too, it's not like the fund would be hit for that amount of money at one time. Terms would be put in place. It could be less because of liquidation of the organization. So there's a lot of steps to that point where we'd actually have 666,000. It was not quite 7, but 666,000, and there would be terms over a period of time to help with that cash flow issue. But to your point, Dale, or Commissioner, excuse me, it does. Those are opportunity or not opportunities. Those are something that could happen. Those are situations that could happen.
Yeah, so just throwing that out there. I mean, if Spencer, if you want to maybe sit down and if everybody's willing to, maybe you could come up with a thought process and say, hey, would you and you be willing to meet and put something together?
Are you just
Anything's in
looking for guidelines to go with it? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just something just a little better than what we did.
I understand what your concern is, and I would agree with that. You know, when you're making a decision in 5 minutes, presented to you, and then 5 minutes you're expected to agree or disagree, and then the individual wasn't here for us to ask them questions either. Of course, that should probably be part of it too. That if they're looking for that, but anyway, yeah, it was probably an unfortunate situation, but we can fix that.
And I don't even know what we would come up with recommendations, but just maybe have a little think tank and say, here's a potential process we could go through.
Just a couple of things, President Moe, members of the commission, just on this topic and in general, loan guarantees. And, I've had a number of conversations with Brad over the last few weeks on this very topic. And I think, the mayor, who's a Forward Devils Lake member, and Brad can tell you, I was pretty candid in the meeting about what my views were as far as the fiscal agent for the city of Devils Lake. And I think a lot about financial risk. And when you give out loan guarantees, I look at, we leave ourselves very vulnerable to kind of that black swan event, that 1 in 1,000 event that happens, like a pandemic or a great recession, those types of things, where if our manufacturing sector would be hit, the gross fund would be hit for a lot of liabilities in the future. And that's the exact fund we would want to use to make some moves in the future if manufacturing went south. We wouldn't want that to happen, but we would need the growth fund to make some moves and get back at it, and that would be what would be hit, which would be unfortunate. A couple things that I've heard when that request came was that, well, we've set the precedent, and I would encourage the commission not to view it as that we've set the precedent. It's what amount of loan guarantees do we have relative to the amount of money that's in the fund, and I think before, and I would recommend the commission really consider requiring multiple evidence that multiple banks have been approached before even considering a loan guarantee of some sort. It's something that, in talking with Brett, it doesn't often happen in bigger communities. The city does not get asked to guarantee a loan. And so would be happy to sit down and think of some things. But at the end of the day, it's the commission's decision as to what you guys want to see. And if you set the tone that says, hey, don't waste your time bringing a loan guarantee to the commission unless we have evidence that multiple banks have been engaged and that this is the best deal in front of you and it's absolutely necessary, and then you have to deal with it on its merits. And so that would be my thoughts.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine. Just like say, just so we have something, a little bit of a playbook, so to speak. It's not going to be perfect every time, but just something a little better than what we just did, unfortunately.
In the time that I've been here, every one of our primary sector deals, there has been no competition between banks. One bank or one customer has been there. So we're changing the dynamics of financial relationships as well. And in this case, like I said, they were the ones from the beginning, that institution. So that's a challenge for regional communities of our size with banks of our size. So I've asked other banks would they have participated initially in that loan in our community, and they said no. So we're maybe forcing, like I say, more regional participation by regional banks, and we don't put that on that customer, obviously. In the past, in other guarantees, I'm looking at Commissioner Hatch. In the case of Summers has had multiple PACE loans through the years. They've gone to that well. Now they weren't loan guarantees, but there were multiple ones to help them through tougher times. So we have had kind of precedence of helping the businesses. But I think you're still, to your point, I think it's probably a good idea. A couple of
And the one that
commissioners.
comes to my mind was when Ultra Green, was that?
Yeah.
We did have, they needed some security, but then we also got some security back. I think it was machinery that they had on hand. And then ultimately what happened was they wanted to sell that machinery. So then I think the building was paid for and we got the building back in trade for the machinery. So in this case, I don't even know if there's any security of any asset other than nothing. I don't know if there was or not.
We have a position, but we're not first or second in building in the case of Summers and in the case of Kojak as well.
So we're unsecured on both of those,
We're secured, but we're not first position.
which is not worth a whole lot. Okay.
But
Just for the record, I would like to be included on anything that has
Any
to do
conversation on what-
with loan guarantees. Yeah, I don't. You can get into some unfavorable positions if we are giving out hundreds of thousands of dollars in loan guarantees without any meaningful security. However, you always have to balance that the commission has to balance that with the interests of Devil's Lake and the community and the economy and growing it. So that's always going to be kind of your balance. But I wouldn't mind, since we're in the discussion, I'd like to be included on anything that involves a loan guarantee.
Yeah, so President Mo, members of the commission, if I hear the commission's desires rightly, we'll kind of try and facilitate a working group conversation and report back to the commission with some, we'll say, a future conversation on the matter where maybe the commission can message how they would like to address the topic of loan guarantees in the future.
That's all I'm asking for.
I will, we'll put that on the list.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that? Okay,
That's it.
all right. No problem. Commissioner Hatch.
Mike, anything from sanitation?
The only thing from sanitation is just a little discussion on the special spring and fall cleanup operations. You know, we finished that this fall. And visiting with Corey, the fall was very similar to what we've completed in the past. But if you look at the spring and fall pickups that we're doing, in total, we're removing about 4,000 cubic yards of material from the city. So to put that in perspective, if you say a typical pickup would be 2 cubic yards, so it's 8,000 truckloads, you know, that is being hauled out of the city each year as part of a very, you know, a benefit that we're providing to city residents. And so we're going to work to put numbers to that. You know, what does that mean from a cost perspective? What is that costing us as far as the tipping fees and all the equipment, the personnel, and what we're throwing at that each spring and each fall? So we'll be putting that together, and I'll bring that forward for the commission for review some future time. And so I have a chance to review it all with Corey.
Sounds good.
That's all I have for sanitation, Commissioner, unless you have questions.
Nothing. Rob?
I continue to work on my education. By the end of next week, I'm going to Bismarck next week for egg land valuation course. I'll have 80 hours of the 180 I need to have done for my class. One license will be done by the end of next week. Other than that, I'm still learning as I go here, and you'll start hearing more and seeing more from me coming up this next month.
Great.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Hamries, Mike?
With utilities, it's been a dry fall, so they're working to try and get some drainage maintenance complete, especially up in the Ruger Park area. Repaired some hydrants that started leaking this fall when they ran the hydrants for the fall and then shut them down for the winter. So they've been doing some maintenance with that. And then prepping the storm lift stations for winter, the winter months. That's all I have for utilities, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Chief?
We finalized the CAD funding from the county and with the proper amounts. And now we're just doing the signing of all the contracts, and then we should be ready to rock. And they're going to assign a project manager to us, and should be to go.
Awesome. That's it?
Tell to thank you guys.
Okay.
Do we have to approve I can't remember if we approved our dollar amount formally last time because there was a little bit of a
No,
miscommunication, or do you need something formal?
I think that the city commissioner approved its intent, and we just had a little miscommunication with the county commission, and we went back to them and they approved what the city commission approved. So we're all good on that front. So.
Good enough. Okay, well, Spencer, I think you got a few things you want to talk about.
Yeah, just a couple things. I have a few action items. I'll run through that real quick. Going to request the commission reissue a check to Kemper Construction for $301,400.36. This was approved at your commission meeting at October 3rd. And we got notice from Kemper that they hadn't received the check yet. And I think in the past, they've brought this to the commission to cancel the check. Well, I didn't want $300,000 floating around up there, so I canceled the check. So just letting you guys know that, asking you guys to reissue. And I might want to seek to have a broader conversation as far as some of the financial policies the city has, just in general as to, you know, what authorities the auditor has and the commission would like to see. Obviously, state sanitary code sets the minimum standards and whatnot, but just to get on a firm footing with the city commission on those types of things, as we want to be able to act quick to secure the city financially, not always have to wait to come to the commission for some things like check floating around. And as far as how we are submitting our payments, because submitting checks by mail via the postal service is, it's no longer the most efficient, reliable, or cost-effective way.
Aren't you able to just do a transaction?
We can do it electronically, right?
Electronically.
And so we've traditionally sent by checks, and I think there's a desire with some of these larger ones to ACH it. Some people like to get the paper check, but if we set a firm policy that says no, we're gonna We're gonna send it to you electronically. We'll
That's a
have-
lot, that's a lot
If
of
you
money
want-
to be putting on a check and just putting it in
Yeah,
there.
so we need to change our strategy with that. So that's gonna be a conversation in future meetings, and we'll have something more thorough for you coming up. But just thought I would request that. So if you guys could take action to reissue the check, I think Kemper would like that.
Do we have a motion to reissue a check to Kemper Construction for 301,400.36?
First,
Motion by Commissioner Pierce,
Second.
second by Commissioner Robbins. Any further discussion? Roll call on this.
Commissioner Pierce?
Aye.
Commissioner Hash?
Aye.
Commissioner Robbins?
Aye.
President Mo?
Aye. Motion carries.
Second, oh, sorry, Mayor.
No,
I will, second requested action item is to transfer grant proceeds to Lake Region Ambulance Service. This is a grant from the Office of the Attorney General for COVID responses at the ambulance services. We just served as their fiscal agent, and so it's just really pass-through funds. So just requesting the commission transfer the funds, $90,856.51. Sean wants the grant money.
Sean, want to say it?
Please.
Pretty please, baby. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, we have a
I'll make a motion
we have a
to
motion.
approve the transfer of funds to the Lake Region Ambulance Service.
We have a motion from Commissioner Robbins.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hatch. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pierce?
Aye.
Commissioner Hash?
Aye.
Commissioner Robbins?
Aye.
President Mo?
Aye. Motion carries. You're safe, Sean.
Next agenda item is just want to transfer the liquor license. We had to change the name of business name. Want to transfer a liquor license that was in Char's Inc.'s name to Anna's Inc. The operator is the same person. It's at the same location. It's the same business model. So just want to change the name of that liquor license. And we have the articles of incorporation from the Secretary of State's office. So just the request to transfer liquor license.
Do we have a motion to approve this change?
I motion that transfer the liquor license, change of business.
Motion by Commissioner Pierce,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hatch. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
I got two last things for you, Mayor and Commissioners. I want to give you an update on Prairie Dog. Got notice from the League of Cities and the state of North Dakota that the buckets have filled to a certain level where we're going to get another tranche of Prairie Dog funding here by the end of the year. Estimated to look at about 1.1 million by the end of the year from documents. The most recent September updates from the League of Cities is what it looks like. Remember, we received 2.5 million, I believe it was last year. And the bucket's filled to the point where we get the additional amounts of 1.1. So we'll be looking for that. And make sure you know when that is received. And then also want to make note, in the list of bills, you'll find a couple bills to Bergstrom Electric for the fix-up of light poles. There was 3 light poles that have been knocked down over the last, back in 2021. And there was no way to recoup insurance costs. We had stolen vehicles and vehicles that we couldn't track down their information. So we're going to have to pay for those costs. And so you'll see that in the list of bills. I think there was 3 total for a grand total of, it was just under $30,000. So, and I did, just so you guys know, I did inquire with the insurance company whether it's worth having them insured, given that we have, around 300 or more than 300 in that ballpark light poles. Devin gave me the exact number. I forgot off the top of my head. But given the number of light poles we have, the cost to replace them, the fact that they would depreciate them, and the deductible on them, I'm not thinking that it's going to be worthwhile to put them on our insurance, and it is what it is. We just need to make sure that if they get knocked down, we get as much information that we possibly can. So,
I've experienced that problem a long time. They run off and take off, and then you don't catch them.
yeah. And if that's okay with the commission, while we're talking about light poles, citizens might notice that a couple of them appear to be giving off a purple tint. Just want to clarify that we are not.
Because the Vikings are winning.
We
That's
haven't.
what it is.
We haven't declared the City of Devils Lake official entirely Vikings fans, but Chief Bennett can give a little public service announcement as to why that is and
We've got the purple rain.
what's coming down the line.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Jim said, he didn't force us to turn it purple. I was talking with Mike, and the LEDs, what makes them clear or that white color is the film on them. The ones that are currently out there, that film's starting to peel away, so they're turning purple. We do have a call into Gray Bar for warranty work on those, and then we're gonna get a hold of DSG. The first time we talked to them, it didn't seem like they really knew exactly what was going on with them, so we got to get a hold of them again. But it seems to be an ongoing problem through several communities right now. So as soon as you call one of them places and mention purple lights, they know exactly what's going on. So we got lights ordered and we're working on it.
Okay. All right.
That's on there.
Okay. Jack, have you got anything to enlighten us about?
No, nothing really to add. I'm working with Nate on a couple things, and then I'm working with Mike on a couple
You're
things.
still working that ordinance change for the vehicles and parking lots?
Mhm,
I was asked about that again. So
mhm.
I said it takes time to do stuff like this.
Yeah, our ordinance is,
Okay,
they're on.
perfect. Anything else? Anybody want to add? Not, we will move on to new business. No, nothing under old business. Nothing under consent agenda. So new business and the first item, certificate of pledge of securities at Bremer Bank. So Spencer.
President Mo, members of the commission, this is an item that you guys typically approve at the end of June and at the end of the year. And we didn't do it at the end of June, so I just figured we could do it now. Approval of the certification of pledged securities from Bremer Bank. It's something that's required from, or that's, required from State Century Code. So just something that you guys do routinely. So we just request a change. Or not change, but just approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of pledge securities.
We have a motion by Commissioner Robbins,
Second motion.
seconded by Commissioner Pierce. Any further discussion? None being, roll call, please.
Commissioner Pierce,
Aye.
Commissioner Hash.
Aye.
Commissioner Robbins.
Aye.
President Mo.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, second item is state bond blanket resolution.
Similar to the last one, this is something that's been typically approved by the commission and at the end of June. This was an application that was sent to me a little after June, and I filled out the application and submitted it, and they sent us a certified bond certificate for basically it's kind of like an insurance policy. And looking at past commission meetings, the city commission has typically set the blanket bond amount at $2 million. That was what was put on the application and certified. So I just want to bring it to you guys to approve the resolution, and we'll make sure to have it approved in June again, come 2023.
Okay, is there a motion to? Motion by Commissioner Hatch,
Second.
second by Commissioner Robbins. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next item, internal transfers, infrastructure and projects, the 4,000 accounts.
President Mo, members of the commission, this is bringing this before you due to the fact that a lot of these internal transfers were not made in 2021, and so want to make those changes for both 2021 and 2022, these transfers. And I would just view this as we're taking up really high positive numbers and really high negative numbers, and we're just lowering the negative numbers. And so our net position remains the same. We just want to reduce the negatives in our project accounts. If you look in the tabulation, the attachment on the staff report, you can see the negative balances as well as what we want to pay down, recommending paying down $600,000 from our infrastructure fund. 300 was budgeted for 2021, 300 budgeted for 2022. So transfer 600 to our flood protection, our flood embankment negative balance, and then using our prairie dog funds, 1.382 million of them to pay down the West Viaduct project, the downtown improvement district, and then various street improvement projects that occurred over the last couple of years. then want to use our non-bonded debt service account to pay down curb gutter sidewalk for 2021. And then if members of the commission that were on here prior to the last election, they refinanced our 2020, refinanced some bonds, and we got bond proceeds 2021A. These bond proceeds have to be used for street improvement projects 7420 and 7620. And then if there is any remainder left over, they need to be stayed in the bond fund to help repay that back. So just want to use that money to pay down projects 7420 and 7621. So would request that the commission approve those transfers, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, wishes, motion to approve. Commissioner Hatch,
Second motion.
Commissioner Pierce seconds. Any discussion?
President members, I would just add that in looking at the 2022 budget, as far as the 2033 fund and the 2045 fund, that the remaining balance at the end of 2022 is in the ballpark of what was budgeted in the grand scope of the numbers relative to how big they are.
Okay. I would guess we should have a roll call for this, so call for roll call.
Commissioner Pierce?
Aye.
Commissioner Hash?
Aye.
Commissioner Robbins?
Aye.
President Moore?
Aye. Motion carries. Next item is FlexPace Loan Shemp Chiropractic Clinic. And Brad's up here to,
Also Dr. Storm now, I think that's her
Oh.
new married name.
okay, I haven't,
You all should have the paperwork on it. You know that most of the time, primary sector loans, when they're primary sector businesses, they're approved and recommended to you. Those are pretty much automatic because that's what we're looking for is primary sector loan, bringing outside money in the community. From time to time, the board gets, Forward Devils Lake Board gets requests from services, retail, other industries. I've personally have had 2-3 different requests for, why don't we have more chiropractors in town? This is a request from an existing chiropractor, Dr. Shep, I should say, and Shep Family Chiropractic. She's buying the building on 20. Help me out with the name for that, the long-term.
Log Junction is what it isn't,
uh,
or College Drive?
College Drive. You've got the address on here. I don't have the name of that building center. Tom Lamont owns it. But she's been renting in the Holiday Mall and she's buying that building that has been for sale. She's going to bring in additional 5 employees. And that was enough for our board to say, yes, we recommend to you to participate in the Bank of North Dakota interest buy down. It'll be $15,000 over 5 years that will be paid back at the end of that term. We will leverage about $35,000 with that from the Bank of North Dakota. So total interest buy down, you can see in the amortization agreement. I don't know how much readers on, but roughly 50,000 total is where it would be, a little bit more than that of interest buy down for that business. What the interest buy down does, I think all of you, Commissioner Pierce, we haven't had a lot of discussion. We talked about it. By us participating, the Bank of North Dakota participating, it just about cuts the payment sometimes in half. I think this one here is about $1,000. At the end, it's about $1,300, and it gets to about, it looks like $829, somewhere in there. So it helps ensure the viability and success of that business when they're expanding and they're growing like this. Any questions at all, commissioners?
I'm fine with it. The only thing that I think we've had a discussion before is who keeps track of everything. You know, I think you and I've had that informal discussion. If you're not here, you know, after the terms are met and they're supposed to start paying it back, you can assume somebody's going to, but that's a lot of information.
We're working our way through that.
I think last time you said you had a spreadsheet about this long, I think.
Yeah, you know, for many years, you know, it was done by Linda, Brenda and I, we've been working through it. I'm not gonna be here forever, I can tell you that. Okay, so yes, we've got them and they're out. We've got some that are still multifamily housing that were made decisions by, I don't know, maybe Rob, you were on the board, but I don't think the other 3 were at that time that were approved at that time. So there's a system and there's a process in place, and I'm trying to clean it up every day and get better. And since losing the previous auditor, we're trying to work our way to that as well.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it. Just a comment.
Yeah.
I would also add too that we're not trying to replicate the old system. We're trying to build a more long-term sustainable one so that we don't put all of our eggs in one basket, and so that if people do come and go, it's not nearly as strenuous.
So
Okay.
you need a motion to approve it? then?
Yes,
I'll make a motion to approve the flex base loan.
we have a motion from Commissioner Robbins,
Second motion.
Commissioner Pierce. Any further discussion? These are ones I like, these small businesses that add people. If we can build little ones like this, it helps. So,
Yeah, 15,000 to
Yep, that's
get,
not
close to
yeah.
40,000.
for
and
5
help
full-time
vets.
employees, it's not bad.
We've done the same in primary sector. I'll put my comment in. We're helping them as well.
Sure.
Those first 5 years of business are crucial. And she's had a little longer term time here, so that's good.
Mhm.
She's going into a permanent situation of buying a building that keeps it there. 5 employees, potentially new employees to the community. It's a good thing all the way around.
I know just from speaking to people, the amount of people using chiropractor, technology now to go out and get done is great. It's just huge. So this is great for the local community.
Okay, I would say roll call.
Commissioner Pierce?
Aye.
Commissioner Hash?
Aye.
Commissioner Robbins?
Aye.
President Mo?
Aye. Motion
Thank you.
carries. Thanks, Brad. Okay, let me get out of here. Next item is approval of an agreement for 14th Street Northeast and 14th Avenue Northeast. And I'd call on, I think, Mike for this one.
Thank you, Mayor. If the commission was at all concerned about not getting enough information, here you have 27 pages of information that you've had all weekend to review and discuss. Through the Department of Transportation, the city is able to secure a one-time allocation of COVID funds. They're funds through the Department of Transportation, separate from any COVID funds that the city administrator's been talking about. These are funds through the Department of Transportation that we could utilize on our federal aid system. As we've discussed in the past with the commission, the federal aid system, we have a few roadways within the city that are some of our busier roadways, our collectors, our larger roadways that are on our federal system. And so we're able to access federal funds through the Department of Transportation for improvements on those roadways. In this particular case, with this one-time allocation of $237,800, there isn't a match required for it. So if we were to encounter a project that the construction cost was that $237,000, we could complete that project with no cost share. So we were looking at a project where that could be beneficial. And in this particular case, we have 14th Street Northeast, the gravel section of 14th Street Northeast, the Midco Road. And I know
I said it'd take 30 seconds, but it took about 2 minutes.
many people
That's all
refer
right.
to it as the Midco Road, but it is a very highly traveled section of roadway. It's a gravel roadway. And that section of roadway is impacted from water from Ruger Park. Those low-head dams that we discussed earlier for Ruger Park, those low-head dams are actually holding water underneath sections of 14th Street.
This is the roadway right after the cemetery, correct?
Correct. So you
That's
have
Directly past it.
the cemetery, you have the railway, and on the north side of the railroad
Yeah.
is this ditch that these dams, when the water flows out of Ruger Park,
Right.
goes over the dams, goes in the ditch.
Yep.
And then it goes on the north side of the cemetery and ultimately out past Walmart. So in this particular case, especially when you have a wet fall, the water is standing adjacent to 14th Street Northeast, and it has a very negative impact on that roadway and the roadbed itself. And this year we had a very tough time with frost boils, very unsafe conditions on 14th Street Northeast, very difficult trying to maintain and just have it open for the public travel over the summer months. Once you have those frost boils in that roadway, it takes a very, very long time for it to heal itself. And so what we've been looking at is how to improve that roadway, stabilize the base. Really what we're after is how do we get a very hard base up there so that we don't have the frost boils, we don't have the safety concerns throughout the summer months. And ultimately, the day may come where we look at paving 14th Street Northeast as well as 14th Avenue. So the two sections of gravel roadway, 14th Avenue going north of the cemetery, goes out to what many people refer to as the Four Corners. And then you take a left, come back into town. That's 14th Street Northeast. Here we have an opportunity, I think, to help improve those roadways. And we really don't have a funding partner. We have an agreement. I see Ray Strong is here. Ray Strong represents North Creel Township.
Ray Sutton.
Ray Sletland, I'm sorry, Ray Strong. Ray Sletland. Ray Strong comes in quite often talking about the same roadway. And with that roadway and improving the roadway, we really don't have a funding partner. North Creel Township, they have limited funds. They're not going to throw a lot of money at the roadway. It's one of our perimeter roads, and we have a perimeter road agreement with North Creel Township. And that agreement currently basically blading the roadway. The city's been blading the roadway in addition to blading the township blading the roadway, just because it's used so heavily and there's a lot of complaints on that road and we're concerned about safety. So it seems like in this particular case, working with North Creel Township, that perimeter road agreement says that we share improvements 50-50. But those improvements really, if we put in a culvert, if we add a load of gravel, those are the improvements that we're talking about. We're not talking about a $100,000 improvement or a $200,000 improvement. And that's the type of improvement that's really required in order to stabilize this roadway and make it safe for public travel and make sure that ultimately we can hopefully construct the base in such a fashion that if we want to pave it someday, and when I say someday, they may be 20 years down the road. But there's some additional improvements that we're looking at with Ruger Park. And with those improvements, people get tired of breathing dust and they want pavement. And so we'll see where that brings us at some future time. So as far as the work that we're doing right now, we need to get a soil borings completed. We want to make sure what kind of soil is underneath that and what is the best technique for stabilizing that roadway and what is the most economical approach that we can do. So we have to get the soil borings complete. And then once we have those soil borings complete, perform that analysis. And then because it's on our federal aid system, we have to develop plans. We have, paperwork that has to be completed and filed through the Department of Transportation. We have to go through the federal process for developing the plans. It takes a lot of time. And we have a lot of other projects that we're currently working on. And so we only have so much time. In this particular case, working with a consultant, Cadmus Lee and Jackson, to put the plans together, do the paperwork for us for the $31,700 that's outlined in the contract. Seems like a good approach for the availability of resources that we have. So that's the recommendation before you. In order to proceed with this project, the city is going to have to be responsible for the maintenance of the road. Right now, we share those responsibilities with North Creel Township. But working with the Department of Transportation, in order for us to use federal funds, it has to be under city jurisdiction. Currently, city limits follows the center line of the roadway. It doesn't do any good for us to only improve half the road. So I can see us in the future, we'll be looking to annex the township portion of the roadway at 33 feet. So we have that entire road right away within city limits, not only on 14th Street, but 14th Avenue as well. So we can use the federal funds on the roadway. So we'll be going through that process as part of this work, and that'll be forthcoming in the very near future. With that, there's 27 pages of documents there. We can review all of it, but that's the nuts and the bolts behind it.
Those engineering fees reimbursable, or that's our share out of pocket, or?
That would be our share of the out of pocket. So if you look at the memo that was put together, ultimately, we don't know the final cost estimate because we don't know what strategy we need to improve the roadway with the soil borings. That analysis has to be performed, and then we'll know what material we're talking about, if we're going to stabilize the base using some sort of cement, if we're going to use enzymes, if we're going to rip out the poor material because it's only isolated areas and we have to replace it. Once we have that all put together, but right now the estimate for the project, we're looking at about $400,000. And of that, the city share would be about $55,000. And that would include the $31,000 that's in this agreement. That's out of pocket expense. So we have the $237,800 in COVID funds, zero match. And then we'd have access to our urban road funds for any costs, construction costs that go above the 237. So if it's another 100,000, 80,000 of that additional amount would come out of our urban roads funding, and the city would be responsible for 20,000 because there would be cost share requirement above the 237. Any questions related to the contract or what we're talking about as far as improving the Midco Road and 14th Avenue?
Sometimes known as the Midco Road. Okay, can you swing her? The money, is the money there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just take this in the spirit of the city of Devils Lake also stepping up and, taking an overburdensome share of, maintenance because we have the capacity to and the ability to, and for the greater good of this surrounding region.
I think that's a vital road.
The idea of safety, it's
Ideas of safety. We do it with a lot of the sewer lift stations that are surrounding the area.
That road's heavily used.
So,
I really believe it should be blacktop, but it'd be a highway then. And Joe would have all those guys out there having to stop speeders.
I think we have enough time for all the reasons why it's not paved. So
Yeah.
I think we should just move forward.
So,
No further discussion. I motion the approval of the contract.
motion by Pierce, Commissioner. Second
Second.
by Hatch. Okay. Any further discussion?
Because of, the portion of the roadway will be outside city limits or the adjoining properties outside city limits, there really isn't a potential to special assess. Right, you have a park on one side and then you have the outside city limits on the other side. So, the cost we'd be looking at is trying to utilize the federal money the best we can and then utilizing, sales tax funds and whatever to make the roadway improvements happen. Other source of fundings, but it won't be a special assessment project.
Okay, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Next will be authorized to call for bids, sidewalks, snow removal. We're not gonna have any snow this year. Right?
We can keep our fingers crossed, Mayor. Every year we call for bids. This is for sidewalk snow removal. If we receive complaints for people that aren't completing, what they need to do as a homeowner to keep their sidewalk free and clear of snow and ice to make sure it's safe for the traveling public. If we get a complaint, we go through a process of notifying the property owner. And then if it isn't cleared, we have a contractor in place to remove the snow.
Will this fall under the nuisances at all? Or will it fall under city engineer?
Commissioner Pierce, it used to come under a nuisance, but there was a lag.
Yeah.
Right, so you have an unsafe condition, you have the traveling public, and you have an unsafe condition.
Yeah.
And by the time we went through the
Procedure.
process through a nuisance, time went.
See, that's
went
why
on.
that's the reason I'm asking. Is it
So we changed that a handful of years ago, and the way we address the sidewalks is handled a little bit differently now, just so that, in some cases, it may be a very heavily traveled section of sidewalk downtown.
Yeah.
Where you just don't have the time. You have a lot of unsafe condition, a lot of people walking, so we're.
because I know it happens down Kelly Avenue right behind the middle school, and those kids are going up and down those streets constantly. So just knowing the process of how it would go through. So you don't have to figure. You can get back. You can get with me.
Okay.
But-
The one thing that has been our policy, though, is that we only react to complaints. So we're not out actively driving up and down looking for the sidewalk. In the past, the mailman, from the mail postal service, they're the ones contacting us. Last year, they weren't, they have a lot of new faces. I met with the postmaster, explained the policy to them. They just have a lot of things going on too. So without us getting the complaints, we're not reactive at this point.
I'll make a motion to approve the call for bids for snow removal.
Moved by Commissioner Robbins, second by
I'll second.
Pierce. Commissioner. Okay, any further discussion? None being, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, change order 1, city project 220201, water main replacement.
Mayor, Commissioners, not very often can I bring a change order that has such a large deduct. I would like to say it was because of the intelligence of the engineering department, but honestly, rather be lucky than good, right? In this particular case, on 10th Street Northwest, we had planned to replace the water main from College Drive to 4th Avenue.
It's a nice chunk of change.
That's what we put the plans together. That's what was bid out. And as we got more involved with the project and we started doing some more research, we found out that sometime in the 1980s, Mayor, it may have been part of your previous work, they had relocated all the service lines in 3 blocks of that section over to a new pipe that had been put in place in the late 70s.
That probably was done before my time, to be honest with you.
Okay, it would have been in that pipe went in the late 70s, near 1980. So somewhere in the 1980s when they would have relocated the
Well, I
services.
wasn't with the water department then, but I remember the work down there.
So we were fortunate enough where we don't have to replace a section of water main. So that's part of the deduct. That's involved in change order 1A, if you're looking through the paperwork. And section 1B is the water main that was replaced along College Drive between 5th Street Southeast and 6th Street Southeast. It's a section of water main that really helps the water department related to looping their system and making sure that we have a good quantity for fire flow. And it's very near the US Bank that existed in that area. We had multiple breaks. That building was being sold. We had no way to provide water service. We had to get things put back together there. And so that's the other portion of the change order that's before you. So ultimately, the net change of the change order is a deduct of $141,157.50. Recommend approval of the change order.
That's a nice change order.
I
I
can't
thought it was
guarantee
a
we'll see many of these.
I thought it was a mistake when I read it earlier.
I recommend approval of the change order.
Okay. Commissioner
Save
Pierce. We have a second by Commissioner Hatch. All in further discussion? None being, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Okay, and pay estimate number 3, city project 220201, water main replacement 27-22.
Pay estimates for work completed to date, amount of the pay estimate is $70,472.16. Recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Commissioner Robbins,
I second.
second by Commissioner Pierce. Any further discussion? If not, all in
This will bring it to fully paid then, or will still be more need to be paid?
Yeah, this is just an estimate. So this particular contract will be open through the winter months
Okay.
because we have
Tracking
additional
it.
work
I got you.
next year.
Yeah.
This covers most of the work though that's been completed yet this year.
roll call.
Commissioner Pierce?
Aye.
Commissioner Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Robbins?
Aye.
President Mo?
Aye. Motion carries. At this point, it's a citizen comment. Is there anybody in the audience that, do we get a card for the citizens to have their voice be heard?
All good. No one's
None?
on there.
Motion to approve the payment and list of bills as submitted.
I would just note that the, that $300 expense to Camper Construction is included in the list of bills.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Commissioner Roberts,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hatch. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Pierce?
Aye.
Commissioner Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Robbins?
Aye.
President Mo?
Aye. Motion carries. We have a miscellaneous municipal court report for October and the 2021 financials, you want to make a comment on the financials?
If anything, a big thank you to, thank you and a good job to Brina over here. Brina Shu now. Congratulations. She got married in the interim between the 3 weeks there. So congratulations, Brina.
Do we have the background music of Another One Bites the Dust?
So big thank you. It was quite a lift to get it to this point, if I could be so frank with you. Taking over, they were in the midst of a software change of which we can't access to, and was going to be charged a pretty hefty penny for them to maybe be able to get us access. So it was quite a struggle, but I think Brina specifically approached it with a really positive mindset, and I don't think her heartbeat ever went up or down at all. She stayed stoic through the whole thing. And there might be one slight change on there that we'll have to make. There was a negative in a cash balance, but we're still working with the current software company, Casella, that we're working with on what's best to do with that. And so it's a continuous exercise that we're going through to try get those formidable for you guys. But felt we better provide those to you, and that's what we have for you. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? If nothing comes before the commission, meeting adjourned.
Shut her down.